Today I'm going to show you how I put together these simple camp tents using dollar store supplies. Alright, I've tried a couple of different methods in the past on making tents like this, but this is the only method I found that I liked and was easy to reproduce and cheap to make. So today we are going to be doing this using some playing cards, a couple of toothpicks, and some non-patterned paper towel or cloth fabric. Alright, we're going to start things off by taking one of the playing cards and just kind of trimming it to be a little bit shorter and gluing that down to a second card. This is going to make it a little bit more rigid and make the whole project a lot more strong. Now using some hot glue, I'm just going to create a ground layer of uneven texture, and that's just going to be a lot easier for the sand to be glued down to and just kind of give it a much better grip and hold on the piece. Now I'm going to use a kind of a medium to thick layer of Mod Podge to prep the area to glue down the sand. Now, I didn't put a paper or a cloth down to catch the sand. I would highly recommend doing that. It makes cleanup a lot easier. Alright, give that a few minutes to dry, and then we are going to apply a full coating of Artist Loft Raw Umber to the entirety of the ground layer. This is going to cover up any of the playing card that might be seen through the sand and give a nice uniform color to work with. Once that's dried, we're going to do 2 dry brushes to finish out the ground coloration. The first is going to be some burnt umber in a kind of medium dry brush. And then we're going to follow it up with a light dry brush of raw sienna just to pick out some of the raised areas. Now using another playing card, I'm going to take a piece of the paper towel and once it's cut to be a rough overlapping size, coat the entirety of one side of the card in some glue. I'm using Mod Podge, and then stick the towel to that side. Then I'm just going to trim the corners so that it's a much easier overlap and fold of the paper towel. Apply a little bit more Mod Podge, fold the towel over, and leave that to dry. Now I'm going to do that with all 4 sides. And once it's all glued down, I'm going to apply a little bit of extra glue on all of the seams just to make sure that everything stays glued down and doesn't start falling apart. Then fold the card in half widthwise, and we've got a reasonable tent shape once we bend out the corners to be the ground section of the cloth. Then I'm going to coat the whole thing in a quick layer of Artist Loft Parchment. Once we do a little bit of a wash, this is going to look a lot like an old canvas tarp tent. Now I am going to paint the inside, but I'm not going to do any wash or extra steps on the inside because it's not really going to get seen. This paint is really just to kind of remove the blue coloration from the underside so that it's not really noticeable. Alright, now once that was dried, I decided to make it look like the tent had seen some wear and tear and some use, so we're going to use a little bit more glue and a little of those cut off extra pieces to create some patches that are going to go onto the piece. Now this is really simple, really easy, but kind of adds an extra element, and since I'm doing multiple tents, some of them are going to have these little patches and some of them aren't, so it'll look like the adventuring party has seen some things, their tents have had some wear and tear, and just kind of brings an extra element to the build. Alright, once the glue there is dry, I'm using some red ochre to just paint over those patch sections just to kind of give them a little bit of extra definition. You know, like the party was out, they had a rough night, the tent got damaged, and in the morning they used some random bits of cloth that they happen to have on hand to patch everything together. Alright, now it's time to affix the tent to the ground section. And we're going to do that with a little bit of hot glue. Now this is going to be super quick and easy to do, and I'm going to do this all in real time. We're just going to lay down a bead of hot glue on each of the sides. Now I'm trying very hard not to have it go over the edges, so I'm just kind of running it a little short on both of the sides just to make sure that when I press it down, the glue doesn't pour out from any of the edges. Now once it is in place, I just kind of press it down, make sure the glue gets worked into the sand layer, and once that's done, it's not going to come loose, and we've got a fairly passable tent already. Now I'm just going to create a couple of tent poles using some toothpicks. This is just kind of quick measure, cut the pick into the right length, a little dab of hot glue to stick them in place initially, and then a drop of super glue onto the ground to ensure that they don't move. Then I just trimmed up a couple of toothpicks to shorter sizes, and gluing them in place with a little super glue gives the impression of some tent stakes, like they just staked it to the ground. Then I'm going to use some Citadel paint Wyldwood contrast to do a quick coating of all of the stakes and the tent poles just to give them a more wood look. Now you can do this with kind of anything, but I'm just going to use this since it's what I had on hand. Now I'm going to coat the entirety of the tarp section with some Agrax Earthshade, and this is going to give it a nice weathered, beat up look and really kind of make it look like an old used tent. Now, if you wanted, you could use any kind of wash, black wash, green wash, what have you. I'm using this because it feels like it would be the most fitting given the scenarios that I'm likely to use these in. Alright, and there we are with the finished piece. I did a quick little setup here, kind of giving the impression that the adventuring party was woken up from their rest and ran into a couple of zombie ghouls that are attacking them. Alright everyone, that's going to be it for today. Hope you all found this tutorial useful. Please hit that like button, subscribe for future content, comment in the comments section. Don't forget to hit that bell icon to stay up to date with all of our new videos, and we will see everyone next episode.